Sarah here, running you through a tutorial on how to do a business activity statement or BAS statement for the Australian franchise partners. So we're logged into our franchise partner role here, and first and foremost, before you can complete a business activity statement or check any of the reports, you need to make sure that your bank reconciliation for all of your bank accounts and credit cards are complete and up to date up until the date of your reporting period. So if you're doing a BAS statement right now for the October to December 18 quarter, then you need to make sure all of your bank reconciliations are up to date up until the 31st of December 2018. So please make sure you've done these first, otherwise you cannot fully know that you've got all of the transactions in your system, and therefore you that can consequently mean that you have to make adjustments in the future, and making BAS adjustments can get a little bit messy, especially with journaling and tidying up the accounts. Not just that, but if you don't have all of your transactions recorded properly, you might actually be missing out on some GST tax credits. So if you don't have all your expenses in, etc. So I do recommend and encourage that you complete your bank recs. Please see a tutorial or send us a ticket on completing your bank recs if you're not quite sure. So moving on to the business activity statements. Our system is set up as an accrual-based reporting system. So for those of you unsure, in business you're either accounting on an accrual basis or a cash basis. If you're unsure, please check with your bookkeeper or accountant. You can also go to your business activity statement or log on to your portal, depending how you get them. And on each statement, it will actually state if you account on a cash or accrual basis. Once you've checked that, if you are reporting on an accrual basis, this system has standard GST reports that you're able to use and complete on that basis. So you hover up to reports, scroll right down to VAT GST, and in here in the GST, all of these are available to you. And you just need to make sure that all of your filters, so your date filters, are correct to make sure you're capturing all the information. So I encourage you to, first of all, run the GST on purchases detail and GST on sales detail reports before completing and relying on the business activity statement. And that's just going to make sure that all of our transactions are in there and allocated correctly. So we're going to move on to a cash basis only because the theory that I'm going to go through when showing you the cash basis report is the same that you'll adopt for checking these two reports. So let's jump in there now. If you're reporting on a cash basis, you're going to hover up again to reports, come into saved reports, and scroll down. I know the list is long. We're going to scroll down to the PWX reports. Whoops. Saved reports, hover down. I got a bit mouse happy. We're going to hover down, and this is the one report that you need. Poolworks, GST, summary, purchases and sales. Please ignore the other saved reports here. These will be decommissioned very shortly and should not appear on the list. Poolworks, GST, summary, purchases on sales. So let's just click into that. And you'll notice up here, we've got cash basis, just to confirm. And you can also hover and click on detail, but we shouldn't really need that. First and foremost, before even looking at any transactions, we just want to do a few things. So first of all, we want to use this button to collapse it into summary mode. So these buttons, for those unaware, you can expand your detail and collapse. So let's just bring it to summary mode first. And we also want to come down here and check that we've got the right dates. So I'm going to complete the BAS for October 18 to December 18 quarter, and this should confirm your franchise partner name. So I'm currently logged in as Poolworks Pool School franchise for testing purposes, but this should have your name here. If you need to change any of these or you're unsure, please click refresh just to make sure the data is correct that's presenting to you. So I'm going to collapse that. Now I just want to run through these first things because before we can complete any BAS report, what we need to do is qualify and make sure all of the transactions are in their right places. And this is for your benefit. From bookkeeping perspective, you can, if your transactions aren't quite allocated properly, you can actually be missing out on GST credits. So let's go there now. So the first one up on top of the list is GST collected, and this is INC for income. Okay, so this is all the sales that we've attached a GST code to. GST free income, these are all the GST free sales. I wouldn't expect that you would see a lot of these because most, if not all, of the products that we sell do include GST. So these are little things that we want to check. We don't expect to see some GST free sales. We have some. It's popped up on this report here, which means there are some values here. So that's one thing I'll be looking at, and we can see, okay, let's have a look at that. Moving on, you've got GST free on expenses. So here's all of our purchases that we've made that are free from GST. Just skipping right down. GST paid on expenses. Here's all of our GST inclusive purchases. And the one we skipped over here, GST paid on capital purchases. So capital purchases generally, please speak to your accountant, but generally are over $1,000. I've put in some dummy data here, just some minor transactions. But this is actually a reportable section of your BAS statement. So the first one that I'm going to look at is that we have unassigned here. And for me, I would expect to see nothing in the unassigned bucket. So what we can do is drill down on our unassigned bucket and we can see all the transactions that is sitting here where the GST code that we've assigned to it on the transaction is unassigned. So let's go fix that up. We can see that it's a check on this date. For the amount, we can see a little bit of detail. You can see I've actually just put this one in here for demonstration purposes. If we hover over a lot of these things, we can see view transaction record. If we hover over some of the other details, view entity record. So if I was to click on this one, I would go to the customer or vendor record. What I actually want to do though is go to the view transaction record. Open it up in a new tab so we don't lose our page here. That saves us clicking and navigating around. Wait for it to load so I can see I've written a check here. I've paid it to this person here, which is obviously a test account. You can see date, all the details, and where I've allocated the expense. So I've actually put in this dummy data so we had some values on our GST report for this video. We can come down here and say, oh, okay, I've bought this miscellaneous expense and I haven't assigned it a correct GST code. So if we're still in the correct posting period, all we need to do is edit. I'm going to pop in here. We can see this miscellaneous expense. Whoops, I accidentally didn't put the right GST code on it. I'm going to pick one here now. It's actually, there's actually no GST on this expense. That's fine. Maybe I bought some milk, and just save that record again. Wonderful. So now if we pop back to our GST report and just click the refresh button. Give it a moment to think. Let's collapse into summary mode. You can see that you can no longer see the menu item of GST unassigned. So that's what we want to see. We don't want to see any unassigned records. What we may want to see in the instance where it's, say, a loan repayment or another transaction that should not be included on the business activity statement, the correct place to allocate that GST code would be, I'll just pop down here and show you, would be, rather than unassigned, would be GST excluded. So if this was a loan repayment, I would want to choose GST excluded, and that won't be included in the BAS. However, it is correctly accounted for in the books. Okay, refresh this page. Wonderful. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is check all of our GST inclusive transactions. You may run an eye over that and actually qualify, yes, I agree that all of these transactions should include GST. You repeat the same with our capital expenses. Yes, let's pretend that was $3,000. Yes, I remember buying that, say, printer from Officeworks. It was $3,000. That's a capital purchase which had GST. Our GST-free expenses, run a close eye over this one just to make sure there's no expenses in this list which have been incorrectly allocated and do actually include GST, because they'll actually be GST credits that you're missing out on. So again, just edit any transactions that need to be updated with the correct GST code. We've got our GST-free income. Let's have a look here. Okay, this client here and this client here, they've got some GST-free income. That seems a little odd. Let's pop in to the transaction and just check it out. So it is really imperative that you go through these checks just to check out what's going on. We've got our GST-free income. It looks like it was a rounding item. And that's fine. That is acceptable. So I've checked all of those, and again, check our GST collected on income. Really double check an eye over this one. This is where you're remitting the GST to the ATO. And I can say, yep, these are all clients that I've sold things to. That's acceptable as a GST expense. Once we've completed that and we're happy with all of those totals, you can click refresh one last time just to double check that everything has been updated. Collapse the menus, and then use these totals to complete your BAS statement. So you'll just need to read the labels on the BAS statement. I can show you the accrual-based version in the system. If we go up to Reports, GST, Business Activity Statement, we actually have a mock digital BAS statement that would actually, again, we need to check our tax periods. It will often default to the current time, which is not what we want, because obviously we're reporting for last quarter or last month. So this will actually pre-populate some of the information. So essentially these labels are replicated in the paper version. You put in your total sales here. What you're going to do is jump over, let me close these. Our total sales are going to be GST collected on income plus GST free income. So you add those two together, you pop them in G1. And does this amount shown in G1 include GST? Yes, it does. This amount here, the net amount, excludes GST if you want to add those up, or the transaction total includes GST. So all we need to do is follow the labels. Here's where we put our capital purchases. Here's how we put our non-capital purchases, which is all of your GST-free and GST-included expenses, which are not the capital ones. And you need to put in your own wages details here per your summary reports and just work through the labels to get your total BAS statement. Once you've gone through all of that detail, you need to record that BAS statement with its liabilities and payables in the system. One way to do that, which I find is good practice, you can general journal it in. However, I tend to